What's up, everyone? This is Brian Weber with another stock market review. Hope you all had a great week and are having a good weekend so far and are ready and preparing for this upcoming week. Whether you're a trader or not, it's good to prepare the day before and not go out and spend all your money and get drunk at the bars, even though Sunday Funday is supposed to be fun. But let's prepare for this week and continue to crush it. So this past trading week, I wasn't able to trade the full week. I did have to go to Florida. Not that I had to, but I really wanted to. I went to Orlando, or flew into West Palm Beach, met up with my sister and my niece. It was her third birthday, so we went to Magic Kingdom up by Disneyland in Orlando. So it was a lot of fun. Even as a kid, or as an adult now, I'm still having just as much fun as I did when I was a little kid, you know, like a teenager or even my niece's age. So it was a good time, and was able to trade 3 days last week between CL, ES, and NQ. Managed to make $920. Not bad for 3 days. Ended the week green. And I do try not to trade when I'm traveling because I never make any money. Or if I do, I tend to give it back because I'm trading from my phone and I don't have my full platform in front of me, and I don't have the time and the attention that I can really fully I can't fully pay attention to the market. I'm really just shooting from the hip, so it's something that I'm really struggling sometimes to not do. But Friday did result in a small down day, about $60, giving some back at the end of the day, entering a position too early. But you know, it's part of trading, is part of knowing when to stop and then realizing when stuff doesn't work, when you should be following your rules, and in order to not dig the hole deeper. So at that point, I decided to, you know, just enjoy Disneyland, and that's what I did. But so the markets are pushing higher, like I keep saying in the previous video and the other videos that I made with my former company at Price Level Trading. So the jobs number on Friday was a beat. I think the forecast was 175,000 jobs for added to last month, which is March, but the actual number was 196,000. So it was a beat and pushed the market higher. We had a few big gap up days last week. Tight range, those are actually pretty hard to trade because you don't have much movement. But the unemployment rate was also unchanged at 3.8%, which is almost, if not an all-time low, at least in the last, you know, since 2008, I would say, when the financial crisis hit. So some things to watch this week in the market before we get into the technical review. So the big economic event that I'm watching this week is on Wednesday, and that's the FOMC meeting minutes, and that will be at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I'm watching to see if the Fed still uses dovish language, and they're still going to be patient with how the economy evolves and whether or not they're going to raise rates. But they've already said that they're not going to raise rates the rest of 2019. So if any uncertainty is introduced into the market, or they might have to raise rates for some reason, or they start using more hawkish language, I would look for the market to have a more steeper pullback than we usually have seen in this nice uptrend on the daily. Another thing that I'm watching, well, the Treasury curve flattened. There was a lot of talk about the inverted yield, or the 10-year note with the, I think it was the 3-month yield. How was it inverted where that 10-year yield was actually less, which is, people say that it hints at a recession coming within the next 6 to 12 months or something like that. But the curve is flattened and now it's no longer inverted, I believe because Trump was demanding some quantitative easing. But I am watching the dollar this week for a potential breakout. It does look pretty strong on the daily. We'll cover that in a sec. If the 97.52 is taken out and we push higher, there's a triple top on the daily, but I'll go more into detail with that in a second. So another thing to note is the USA-China trade talks. There's not a real timeline, I would say. I mean, at least that Trump or China have agreed on yet, so it's kind of up in the air. They did meet Trump and the ministers of China and the leaders there met this past week, April 3rd to the 5th. They made significant progress, but there's still a lot of work that remains. And some of the topics I have here noted down that they discussed were intellectual property, forced technology transfer, non-tariff barriers, agriculture services, purchases, and enforcement. So I will continue to watch any news headlines that comes out regarding the USA-China trade talks. Be vigilant. Always have your Twitter open. I follow Zero Hedge for the updates. Usually they're pretty good about getting it out within the first 10 seconds of it being released or so. Also watch Trump as well. But the other thing is the Brexit uncertainty still lingers. I'm not really paying too much attention to that, but it's always in the back. I'm thinking in the back of my mind. If I see any really negative news headlines, then I'll shift my thinking intraday if I'm trading to more of the downside. Or if a deal was reached, that could potentially move the market upward. But there hasn't been any progress, I would say. So I'm not really having my hopes up for that one. And then the economic events, of course. So the big ones I'm watching, of course, were the Fed minutes, like I mentioned, on Wednesday, and there's two other things. The CPI data on Wednesday will be released first, and then the crude oil inventories right before the FOMC meeting minutes. Thursday, we have the PPI, and then Friday, we have preliminary consumer sentiment and inflation expectations. That's what I'll be watching. So let's jump into, I'm going to look at the overall markets, and then we can look at some equities. I think I'm going to look at Apple, still in a swing trade on that. It's looking really nice. Then I'm going to look at Boeing, Disney, Square, and JP Morgan, because JP Morgan does have earnings, I believe, this Friday. So let's jump into that technical review. All right, so the market's already open, and I do have the E-mini S&P 500 futures pulled up here. I'm going to cover that one first. So, like I said before, market's still continuing to grind higher. You can see we keep making higher lows and higher highs, and every time we come back and retest that previous high, like for example in this area, when we came back up, made a new high, came back and retested there and held, and then that's kind of like a similar pattern that I'm looking for. I mean, we did it here, new high, came back, retested, new high, came back, retested, and we're making a new high now. So I think the market will continue to grind higher as long as we hold this uptrend, and any retest that we have, especially the 66 area, 58, I would say just 28.58 to 28.63. Let's just be a little bit more conservative in case it wicks down. That'll probably be this upper trend line that we have here. As the price moves on, I think this trend line will catch up into that area. You can see that we have this trend line right here, this major one from near the all-time high, and we are breaking out of it and continuing to go higher. We did this 2878.5 was the 2018 first sell-off. If you look over, I have to go like really far back. Let's go to 3 years. That was the Trump train here. That was the end of it, actually. That's when the Trump train crashed right there and got derailed a little bit, then came back a little bit, and eventually we made a new all-time high. But let me go back here. So that's another level of support that I'm watching. But the line in the sand would be to hold this uptrend. I mean, we still have to come back and more than likely retest that area and retest this breakout of the trend line. So that's a typical pattern that you'll see. So I wouldn't be surprised if we busted up to if we can break through the 2900 area overnight and hold into around the London opening, like the European markets, and hold into our pre-market, into the cash opening. I think that would be a really bullish sign. But if we break above the 2900 and we don't hold into the cash open, that would be a little bit weaker to me. Or if we don't even test we haven't actually tested 2900 yet. The high right now of this candle is 98.5. So if we don't test the overnight action, I'd be really surprised if we didn't test that 2900 since we're so close to it. But if we don't, we reset and we test the lower levels, I mean, this candle right here probably could be a nice retest. The open is around 87, but I don't really see it going that far back, but it could. 92 is pretty strong support on ES, and we do have a nice, and intraday we do have a nice uptrend that could be viable as well. But if we consolidate just below 2900 and it doesn't break out through there until cash open, that would be another strong signal to me as well. Let's take a look at this fib really quick. If you take a look at this measured move, 28.66, 27, 26 and a half, we are hitting the first fib target. I actually missed it by a tick, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect every time because the range is so big. But getting close to a tick on this fib target so far, we hit there, so it could potentially be a nice retest coming up. Or if we break through there, my next main target would be just above the new all-time high, 26.52 on this 2/3 up fib. And you can see that we are in an up channel. Let me just remove this really quick. We're still in this up channel. Here's the trend line. I am looking at, if we do break higher, this 29.12, 29.15 is going to be pretty strong resistance. I would actually look for a short there intraday, but of course see what happens to the price action once we get there. But I would say there would be a good chance of some resistance there. If we clear that area and we hold, I think hitting a new all-time high is very possible. Let's take a look at the NQ, the NASDAQ. NASDAQ also very strong, breaking out of its down channel that I had drawn last week. Kind of already retested it. A bunch of people were jumping on short here. At least probably this candle just below this trend line again. And we did push up the next day, and we came back and retested, had an inside day, and then we were pushing higher. We still haven't really broken out of this candle on the 3rd, which I believe was on Wednesday. Yep. So we need to clear this. What is the high? 7616.25. NQ needs to get above there. And 7651, 7650 is my next target on NQ. And you can see we're in a nice up channel. These are these 3 levels that I'm watching right now to be tested in the near future, as long as this uptrend holds within like the next week or two. As long as this uptrend holds and the FOMC meeting minutes aren't, they remain the same, the Fed remains dovish, then I think we could continue to grind higher as long as this 75-20 area, 25 area holds, in any retest. And more than likely I'd be watching this major uptrend line that we need to hold. It depends on where we are as we go higher or lower, but this uptrend line, I want to see this hold on any reset. And I'll watch to see if we can't push above this area, it'd be a sign of weakness. But I think if we do, these upper levels right here, very achievable to hit, and the NASDAQ is the closest to a new all-time high, I would say, and it's very likely that will happen if we do push through this resistance up here. But you can see that the volume is decreasing a little bit, so that's the only thing that worries me for this rally. But I have noticed in the past that low volume does kill the bears, because that's just the pattern that I've seen. Let's take a look at YM. So YM did hit the target that I had mentioned last week, and we do have a nice, I have to zoom in a little bit, looks like an inverted hammer of some sort. Yeah. Right at the open of this big candle back on October 10th, not surprising that the YM had some selling there. But the YM's also not very far off from a new all-time high as well. All of them have pretty similar patterns. YM is the only one on the daily that has more of a bearish candle on Friday. So I want to see if we can clear this high
I'd say it's pretty possible to get to 26,500. We really got to clear the highs of these candles back here where we consolidated before we had this big down day over 1,000 points. If you can get above that area, let's just say 26,550, and it holds, hitting these upper targets up here and potentially a new all-time high is very possible. And on any reset, I do want to see us, let me zoom in a little bit. I do want to see us hold. See, we already looked below this candle. Let me see. 26,354. Yeah, we already looked below the candle on Friday and we're holding. We're forming a nice lower wick, so that's a good sign so far. But we are on the faster time frames, we're in a down channel. So I'll be watching that for a trade. But any reset, I would like to see this 26,250 hold. And then this retest right here. This the lows of these candles, the close of this one and the open of this candle. It's around 26,145. That's also the backside of this breakout in the 9 EMA on the daily. And if that doesn't hold, we have this lower trend line that we started where we're making higher lows on the daily, which aligns with the 50-day SMA. So that's what I would be looking for on the Dow. Let's take a look at the RTY. Oh, I guess I didn't go through. There we go. Pretty bullish candle on the RTY on Friday. You can see this nice uptrend we have right here. We're making higher lows and higher highs, so that needs to hold. First thing I notice, we are breaking, let me zoom out. We are breaking this down channel from the all-time high, so that's a really strong signal for the bulls that this rally might continue higher, because this RTY has, so far when it tested the 200-day SMA and this trend line 1, 2, 3, about 3 times. On the 4th time it pushed through. So I think testing the 1600 area again is possible this week. And if we break through there, then I have these upper targets here. We still haven't got, this is the October 10th candle, so this 1627.1 is pretty strong resistance right in this consolidation area right here. I'd be looking for more selling or some resistance. But if we don't push higher, I do want to see the retest of this 1577.7 hold and the backside of this trend line, and the 200-day SMA is right here, I believe. Yeah, it's around 1575.3. That needs to hold, and this upper trend line. Otherwise, we're probably going to reset lower to the 50-day SMA, and this lower area around 1548. And of course, if this is a false breakout and we continue trend down, we have this 1530 area, then just continuing the trend down by testing these previous pivots. Let's take a look at gold. So there's already a little bit of buying gold. There's some consolidation. We made a higher low, but there's some consolidation. It's kind of like a flag forming here. If gold doesn't break out and get back above this 1305 area and clear this 50-day SMA, and it's got to get above this downtrend, there might be more selling pressure on gold to break this support right here at 1280 to potentially go back down and continue this downtrend down to 1263.9 first, around 1265-ish, somewhere in that area, and then the 200-day SMA, and then to have this uptrend line here. So there's going to be a lot of support in this area. It's around 1250, 1245 to even to 1265, I would say. There's just a lot of support right here. 200-day SMA, you got a trend line, you got a down trend line here. You have a momentum pivot level with this would also be the fib target. So there's a lot of areas that could cause the price to bounce here. But like I said, price needs to gain momentum to go back up here, because this could potentially be an H pattern to go down. But if it doesn't, that means to me that maybe the market is going to sell or pull back a little bit. Then gold will maybe push back up to the upper part of this channel and see how it reacts. So I'll be watching to see how the equities are going to do this week, and then trade gold the inversely to that. unless of course you're at a strong resistance support and play it appropriately. Let's take a look at CL. This is light sweet crude oil. What a huge rally. So I've been talking about this push up for quite some time. Actually had this box back here due to I think it was on the weekly chart. Just take a look. It had a lot of strong support in this area on oil. I think it might have even been the monthly. Yeah, the monthly. Was looking for a bounce somewhere in here, and that so happened to be where we finally reversed all that selling, which started back in October of last year. And we have been making higher highs and higher lows. We're actually breaking out of this channel right here. We did last week, I believe that was Tuesday, and we came back and retested it, and we pushed much higher on Friday, right to this 63.4 pivot that I have. And I believe that pivot is from this candle back here. So I'm watching that area. Then of course have this, got some resistance here at 64.15 to 20 area, and then even 64.50. So I'm wondering how much higher crude will go, but I am looking for 65, 66 on a nice target on crude. Come back and retest this consolidation breakdown back here towards the end of October. So far, that's looking like a pretty good target to me. There might be some pullbacks along the way, but so far crude is looking very bullish still. And if I look at, let me take a look, see if I can look at a fib target maybe. We do have this pivot point to here. You can see anytime I see we broke above this, we broke above the 200-day SMA for the longest time, ever since back in October last year. We closed above it, and now we're pushing above. So that needs to hold, and then we have uptrend lines that need to hold. Anytime though on a fib that I see us break through a fib target, which is this 123.6%, and it becomes support, which it is now, along with the 200 SMA and 9-day EMA, that's going to be very bullish to me. So I do think that there's a possibility if we can push through this pivot here. We did gap up a little bit on oil. If we can push through this 63.40, and I think we could see 64 potentially tomorrow if the markets are strong. It's looking like a nice target to me so far. So we'll see how that goes. I don't want to see us go below the 61.80 to 61.90, which is also a 200-day SMA. So that's the support I'm looking for to hold. But before I start looking a little bit more bearish, right now I'm continuing to be bullish on crude. So the next one I'll look at is the dollar. Oh, that's wrong. If you're a Forex trader, you're probably paying attention to the dollar. Let's zoom in a little bit. Still making higher lows on the daily. The only thing that's resistance, see this triple top we have here around 97.70. However, we did make lower lows here and higher lows. But if we do break out of the top of this channel, because we did come down and test the 200 SMA like I mentioned we would. At least that's what I look for, a bounce. And there's this trend line there, a lot of support, and we came up, made a lower high, but we did break through 2/3 back, and now it's acting as support. So this 96.95 area, 96 or so, is acting as support. And it does look like people are looking to short this area based on this candle, and then there's a doji, almost a doji forming here. So if I think if the dollar does look strong still, it looks like it wants to break out and clear. If it clears this candle here on, I think last Tuesday, April 2nd, we could have another shot at the 97.70 area. And if we do clear that, might actually go to the top of this channel, this trend line, and then the top of this channel too, just continuing the trend up. So that's what I'd be looking for on the dollar. Like I said, support will be this 1/3 back fib. Let me zoom out, and then below there you have the 50-day SMA needs to hold. Let's take a look at some equities. So I'm gonna look at Apple. Apple's pretty simple to analyze. It's just bullish, in an uptrend. It's still pushing. Zoom in here. I have this fib here, this pivot, that pivot. So you can see about 50% retracement on that move. And I got in on a swing trade like right around this area, around the 185, I would say. I got in maybe a little bit higher because there was a lot of buying that came in. Once this level was tested, it was moving. It was hard to, if you didn't have an order there, trying to set one up was stressful. So you kind of had to take what you could get there because based on, the analysis that you did. And then seeing these higher lows start printing in the higher highs, breaking through the 200 SMA, or this was a nice one white soldier candle. This was almost a tweezer bottom right here. Always a look below, and then it bounced back up. And I do think if we clear this 197.69, looking like we will, if the market's strong tomorrow, I don't want to see us lose this trend line. More importantly, this 193 area. Otherwise, I think this momentum might die a little bit. I think I put my stop below that area too. Yeah, below this 193. I don't want to see us lose that in a 9-day EMA. So I did add on the position once we broke this 188.75. I think it was the close of this candle. Yeah, 188.74. Broke above it, closed above it, and retested it. Got added a contract there. So the cost base is pretty low considering where it is now. But I am looking for Apple to continue to test, maybe this fib target here, 204. I think 198.50-ish first, and then potentially 200 plus. Just continuing the trend here as long as we keep maintaining this bullish momentum. Otherwise, I would look for those falling supports. Below 193, you'd have the 200-day SMA, and then you'd have this 1/3 back and 50% retracement, which is also going to be this lower trend line that needs to hold since the reversal back at 142. So let's take a look at Boeing. Boeing bounced off a beautiful weekly support that I had. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get any shares or options there. You would think we're going lower here with that inverted hammer, but trapped everyone, as this is a really strong support area. 50-day SMA on the weekly, and this pivot back here on January 29th of last year. Very strong support, and you can see that we did rock it up regardless of the bad news that happened. Unfortunately, it's very sad due to that plane crash. A lot of people lost their lives, and it's just a very sad situation. But from an investing standpoint, bad news is an investor's best friend, which provided, a cheaper entry if you wanted to own Boeing. If something like that, it sucks if you were to make money based on something like that. If you did, I think it would be a good idea to donate some of the profits to some type of fund that supports the victims of and the families to help them out, considering the situation. But I am looking. This 394.28 needs to clear. We need to get back above there, and then the open and high of this candle on Friday. We need to get back above there in the 50-day SMA to potentially have a shot at first hitting this candle at, I think it's 402.67. Yeah, there's going to be some resistance there, and we have this downtrend line from these two candles. So it's forming a diamond shape. So it's going to definitely go one way or the other in a big way. There's probably a lot of news coming out in the future with Boeing, with the flight report and the investigation and all that stuff. Any news about the software upgrades, or if any more negative news comes out, it's going to really whipsaw the price action. So just be aware of that. But if you take a fib here, we are about 1/3 back, which so happens to coincide with this pivot. I love that when it happens. And I think this would be 50% back, and then of course 2/3 back is going to align with this pivot too. So that's going to be a really good target if you're long from down here. This 413.74. You could take some off there and trail the rest. see if the momentum continues back up there. But I would look for Boeing to do this 50% retracement first and then this 2/3 back. The support is going to be around 385 and then this lower trend line. But I think if we lose that area, I think testing this trend line is most definitely going to happen. And then potentially these lower levels where we push through like 375. So that's what I'd be looking for in Boeing. Let's look at Disney. Had to review this stock because when I went to Magic Kingdom on last Friday, I was just amazed. I haven't been there in so long of how much everything costs there and how much people must be dropping thousands of dollars, especially with families. They have big families. Say you have a family of like 6, but you have 4 or 5 kids, and you and your wife or husband or something, and you're not bringing your snacks and all your drinks to the parks. I mean, they're making a killing off of not only the tickets, but all the food and then the souvenirs and all that good stuff. So I wanted to take a look at Disney and see where the price was, and it actually looks pretty good for a potential breakout. It's at a resistance right here. This was a sell-off back in December. Didn't get any Disney here. It was a nice test of a previous strong pivot that I had. I believe it was on the weekly chart, almost to the penny. Kind of sad I didn't have an order there to buy some options or shares, but it's okay. But let me zoom in a little bit here. We're making some higher lows, higher highs, so we're coiling to go one way or the other. This is a nice high wave candle on Disney right at a resistance. So I'm thinking there could be a potential breakout trade here on Disney. If you look at the weekly chart, almost you have a gap right here. We are breaking this down trend line. So let's go back to daily. I think if we can get above this 115.80, I think reaching this 118 area is pretty achievable. I think it's achievable, most definitely. And then possibility to test this downtrend line in the 120 area again. So if it was me and I was trading, you could actually have a small position, maybe take the high of this candle, take the break out of that, keep a stop below here. If we break above this candle, come back and retest, add another one, and then move your stop up accordingly, and then look to get some off here and then trail the rest for that. And that's kind of a trade that I'm looking at right now. Obviously start with a smaller risk than normal and then add as it works, which is something I've been practicing lately, and I highly recommend doing that, always adding to your winners. It's a lot easier to do that than adding to a losing trade, just to only watch your P&L get even worse, which I never recommend adding to a trade that doesn't work right away or initially, because you only lose more money. So that's what I'm looking for on Disney. Actually, let me take a look at this. They got a fib right here. Yeah, there's a fib target up in that area around 117.41, so 118-ish. So because there's a pivot over here, I would look for the 50 and the 200-day estimated hold. That's going to be support 1/3 back. So that's where I would look for in Disney to buy if I was looking to get in for a trade long. So let's take a look at 2 more. JP Morgan. JP Morgan reports earnings this Friday. That's going before the bell, before we open. And I do like the way that this chart looks. We're at a resistance. We got a nice uptrend right here. I think if we can, it's kind of looks similar to the rest of the market. We're coming up on some trend lines. People are probably looking to short. We're near 2,900 on ES, law of round numbers. People are probably jumping on there. But if we can clear that area, maybe put a stop below these candles, the red ones, because these are definitely people jumping on short, although the volume is decreasing. So there's not many, I would say not many people, it's not much participation, but that's probably because we're reaching a resistance and there's less buyers. But if someone steps up and we take the breakout of this candle. But I mean, we have the 200-day SMA here, so there's a lot of resistance, especially in this area around this other trend line and then this 108.40. So because of that, because price is below the 200-day SMA, I probably wouldn't look to take this trade long, although it's possible you can get a quick trade to the upside if it breaks up higher, clearing Wednesday's candle. But you do have a lot of resistance right here. And then the support, let's take a look at where we are here on this fib. So 1/3 back's holding. So you got support around 104.50. And then the 50-day SMA. Halfway back would be about 103.25. But the big one, line in the sand, that I'd be looking for is $102 per share. You can see that this pivot here aligns with the fib. And then you have this lower trend line. But we also have this higher high right here. So I think I would wait till earnings, see what JP Morgan does, unless you can make a quick profit, a quick trade on leading up into earnings. You have about 4 days to decide. Let's take a look at the square. Last one I'll look at. So square just can't seem to get the momentum to go to the upside. It's just chopping around. And it's actually contracting quite a bit from the all-time high. You can see that we're just making higher lows, or lower highs and then higher lows. So we had an inside day on Friday, right on the 50-day SMA. We're holding just above the 200-day SMA. So there's obviously two things that could happen. When the market or an equity starts contracting on price, you can see how the range is getting tighter and tighter. That usually almost always leads to expansion. So that means square is going to break up or it's going to break down in a big way. If it breaks down and we lose this 200 SMA and the 71 area, if we lose this channel, I think testing 65 is pretty possible, but maybe 68 first. And that would also be this uptrend line if we lose that area. But if we can break out, I also want to show you something really quick on the weekly chart that I noticed. This is why the closes of the candles are so important. Take a look at this candle back on, this is the week of January 21st, excuse me. The close is 77.97. The high was 78.15. Since then, we have not had a close above 78, and that's the number I have been looking at on Square to see if we can close above 78, even on the weekly chart if you're swinging it. I mean, there are some days here where it closed above 78, but if you're a swing trader and you want to hold a little bit longer term, it's really a good idea to trade off the weekly chart and then narrow down your entry on the daily, because you plan on holding, for at least a week, if not a month. So we didn't close above 78. That really needs to happen. You could even look at taking a trade like this now, since we're contracting so much. Break above the weekly candle here, stop there. If you want to take it to the upside, you'd probably want to look for a target somewhere up here, though, around 93. But there's a lot of support here. I don't know how much downside you're going to get out of it, but you never know. There could be a nice trade to the downside if we do, especially if we lose the low of this candle right here, the week before last. So that's what I'm looking for on Square. Thinking it's going to move one way or the other because it's just chopping around right now. Not really doing a whole lot. But this is all I have for you guys. Let me know if you have any questions. Go ahead and drop a comment on this video, or you can send me an email at contact@brianwweber.com. I'll be more than happy to respond as soon as I can. And go ahead and click the subscribe button if you haven't already, and make sure you turn on notifications by clicking the bell. And I'll be back next week with another review for you guys. Good luck trading, and talk to you soon. Bye.